What up, motherfucks? It's your boy once again, right? I was on YouTube last night doing some light YouTubing up in this bitch, right? Nothing wrestling related or anything like that. And I came across a video, right? Not on the suggested list, but after you watch a video, this video was unrelated, by the way. I came across a video that talked about this concept, apparently, called Sigma males, right? I didn't even watch the video, but I could tell based on the thumbnail that this loser, the guy, you could tell the guy was a loser by looking at him, right? He was going to start talking about, like, you know, alpha males and beta males and all that horse shit, right? Now, when I say horse shit, I'm not saying that there's no such thing as an alpha male. Obviously there is, right? But none of this shit has anything to do with getting laid. Believe me, motherfucks. Because if it did, then you would have to answer this question for your boy. How is it that people like Johnny Depp get laid? What is he? Is he an alpha male? No, motherfucks. But he's a guy that's perceived as being good looking, and he plays up to his mysterious, like, sexuality, charm type of thing, right? So there's many ways to get laid. And as a matter of fact, I believe that it is our duty, you know, to each other to prevent each other from going down these ridiculous rabbit holes of, oh, I'm going to be an alpha male and, like, I'm going to get the girl and not the beta male. A beta male is below me. Like, all this stupid nonsense. You know what I'm saying? This is the kind of shit that, like, neckbeards and basement dwellers talk about. You know what I'm saying? If you want some real confidence, I suggest you start with yourself. You know what I'm saying? And I think I mentioned this like a year ago or so, a while ago, that I was going to do these videos about motivation. And I'm going to start doing that because I cannot allow this war to go on without me. You know what I'm saying? The hater needs a voice in this space, you know, before everyone turns into an incel. You know what I mean? All these people I see online, oh yeah, I'm a Sigma male, I'm an alpha male. You're a bitch is what you are. Shut the fuck up. Which leads us a good segue to our real point here, all right? To our real point. You know, after this YouTube video debacle that I just described, I went and I saw the highlights of the Joe Rogan Undertaker podcast again, right? Just because I wanted to hear it again, you know? I wanted to hear the sweet nectar again, motherfucks. And I heard it, and now I zeroed in on another part, on another thing Undertaker said. In my first video, I talked about the video game criticism a lot, you know? And about how people aren't men, how men aren't men, you know what I mean? And a lot of people have talked about this, you know what I'm saying? But it is what it is. But I think that the real thing to focus on here, now that I think about it, the only thing that Undertaker said about the product, right? Because everything else he was talking about the people, the characters, right? He was talking about the, like, not even the characters, the actors, the men behind the scenes, right? So he was alluding to the fact that these people don't live their lifestyle, right? So it's like you have Roman Reigns, he's supposed to be the stoic badass, right? But he's out there playing video games, you know, like as he said in his own interview, where he was like, I play video games sometimes. Like, shut up, you know, no one cares, right? So there's that element, and then there was the other element where Undertaker briefly, very, very briefly, talked about, like, the in-ring product, if you will, right? And what he said was something along the lines of, I'm paraphrasing, I don't know the exact quote, but it was something like it's too pretty and not it doesn't have enough substance, right? So, like, those are the key words that I got from this rewatching of the Joe Rogan podcast. Just the highlights of that part, basically, was the words too pretty, right? And not enough substance, right? And I started thinking to myself, what are some examples of this, you know? Because, you know, when someone makes a claim like that, especially one that is kind of vague, you have to start thinking to yourself, what are some examples that I can pick up on, right, that really encapsulate this? And I look no further than my own self and my own videos, motherfucks, because I have talked about this many times over the years. Not the years, I mean, I've only been around for like a year. Over the years, I've been this bitch, right? But, I have talked about this in various ways. I haven't said it's too pretty, not enough substance, but I have insinuated the same thing, I believe, right? So, for example, I've talked about a lot how Drew McIntyre, back when he was a heel, not so much now, back when he was a heel, for some reason I'd always see this guy on his knees. You know what I mean? On his knees, right? Like, he would be on his knees, like he'd clothesline someone, right? And the person would be down, or he'd hit him with, like, the steel steps, and then he'd get on his knees to, like, get to their level and yell at their face, right? And then he would do this cringy, like, embarrassing thing where he would, like, kind of, like, stand on his knees, right? Where he'd be like, you know, he'd be like standing straight but on his knees, and he would flick his hair up, right? To like, you know, so his hair is out of the way of his face, right? And then he would have this, like, menacing look, right? But it was this weird, like submissive type maneuver. I don't even know how to explain it. It was very strange to me, right? Like, I'm like, this is a big guy. He's like 6'7". Why is he always on his knees flipping his hair? You know what I mean? What's up with this flipping your hair? That's not cool. You You know what I'm saying? That's cool if you're like a hot girl. It's not cool if you're a dude who's supposed to be like muscular and strong, right? Another hair flipper is Roman Reigns, right? This cocksucker, every time he gets a chance to flip his hair, he flips his hair. You know what I mean? Like he'll do the little ooh-ah punch thing, not the ooh-ah, but when he does like the punch to the ground, and then he'll flip his hair, right? Like, and then he'll have this look on his face like, oh yeah, I'm locked into this guy, I'm gonna attack him, you know? It's so cringy, it's fucking goofy as shit. It's like, you're a grown man, you're flipping your hair, you know? Now, I know that WWE.com is gonna do this WWE Untold. The Untold series on the WWE Network is actually pretty dope. I've watched a few of them, they've been pretty nice. About the APA, so I guess in order to like, hype that up, they did a thing on WWE Network, which I mistook for the Untold and I watched, but it was the best of the APA. They had this like this cuckold journalist, like the blonde one. This guy's just like, he added absolutely nothing to this entire compilation, but he was just there. He was like, I like wrestling. Shut the fuck up, man. So, but they had like matches with Farouk and Bradshaw, right? Ron Simmons and Bradshaw, you know, and there was a point in time when Bradshaw had long hair, like longish hair, and then eventually he had long hair, right? Back when he was just Bradshaw from the APA, right? And this motherfucker never flicked his hair once because he wasn't trying to sell that character. He wasn't trying to sell the I'm a pretty boy that fights. You know what I mean? He was trying to sell the I'm a guy you don't want to fuck with character. And him and Ron Simmons sold that convincingly. I've talked a lot about Ron Simmons and JBL these last few weeks for some reason. I don't know why, right? I feel like they just keep coming up. I mean, I've been watching some old wrestling when JBL was champion, so maybe that's why. But the facts are what the facts are, right? Like I said in a few videos ago, you know, probably like 2 weeks ago or something. I said, did you ever see Ron Simmons, right, or JBL ever smile when they were the Acolytes or the APA? No, they never smiled, right? They were not these laughing dudes. You know, these like, ha ha ha, like guys. They were not those guys, right? Because guys like that in real life are pussies. And these guys were not trying to be pussies. And because they're obviously not pussies in real life, right? Because they're not pussies, they know exactly how to act to sell the idea that they're not pussies, right? That's what Undertaker was getting at, I feel like, you know? That's the substance that he was talking about. You know what I mean? That's part of why these wrestlers today don't have that appeal, that mainstream appeal, where they feel like badasses, right? So, for example, a perfect example would be John Cena, Thugonomics John Cena, right? That guy exuded confidence, right? He was a guy that wasn't to be fucked with, you know what I'm saying? Like, even when he was a heel and he was getting his ass kicked, he still exuded confidence. He would come up, he wasn't out there like laughing and smiling. He had this stoic face on. He would make fun of people, and he wouldn't really like laugh. He wouldn't really smile. He would just like talk shit, and he had this serious face of like, I'm gonna fight you right now. You know. Then eventually that became kind of the goofball Cena, which I still like personally because, you know, for the children and just for the main star can be like that. That's fine. The main star can be John Cena. The main star can be Hulk Hogan, right? But what about everybody else? What about people that just don't have the charm and presentation of John Cena and Hulk Hogan, right? What do if they can't get over? They need to have substance. That's what Taker was saying, right? But nowadays, it's too much pretty, not enough substance, right? So, for example, perfect example, even though the New Day is a comedy act, right? There was a point in time when every pay-per-view, Xavier Woods would come out with a new hairstyle, right? Now, this was fun sometimes because there was a show they did in like Philadelphia and he styled his hair like one of those old-timey powdered wigs, which I thought was great, right? But the reality is this, right? The point of wrestling is supposed to be that these wrestlers are, in fact, the people they portray, right? That's the illusion. The illusion is that, like, presumably, Kane is a red retard, the big red retard, I should say, in the ring and out of the ring. Out of the ring, he's a guy that walks around with a mask. That's the assumption, right? So the idea that Xavier Woods is supposed to be just a wrestler that likes to laugh in and out of the ring, right, is compromised by the fact that he has a different hairstyle every week, right? Because on one hand, you're out here fighting for your life, right? People are beating the shit out of you every week. And then on the other hand, you have time to go and get your hair done, right? You should be thinking this way, right? I don't want a guy who's getting his hair done every week to represent me as a viewer of anything, right? Especially something that's badass. You know what I mean? Like maybe if you're in Queer Eye for the straight guy, that makes perfect sense, right? You're a guy who's all about his appearance, so you get your hair done or whatever every week. Perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. But in wrestling, it's not supposed to be about that, right? So you have people like Seth Rollins with like a blonde streak in his hair for absolutely no reason. You know what I mean? You have all these things that don't make sense, right? It's too flashy. It's too pretty, like Undertaker said. That's what I've been getting at, right? You have Drew McIntyre, a legitimate monster, on his knees, flipping his hair on his knees like 80% of the time. I don't understand. Like, the best example of this was when him, Lashley, and Baron Corbin were fighting Braun Strowman, basically. And every week they'd attack him, right? And every week, the three of them would, like, pretty much overcome Braun Strowman, right? And then in the end, you would see, like, Baron Corbin standing, Lashley standing, and Drew McIntyre on his knees, flicking and touching his hair. You know what I mean? Like, the other two are, like, in their head probably were like, Drew, get up, bro. Like, you look like a fucking loser on your knees. Like, why are you on your knees? We won this fight, right? You know, and then eventually Drew would get up and he would, like, overact. Right? He'd be like, yeah, we did it. And, like, the fact that he was on his knees all the time, to me, made him feel like the third guy. And he was the third guy in that three-man group, right? Turns out that he became the number one guy out of those three guys, but he was the third guy, you know? On his knees, hair-flicking behavior, right? Same thing with Roman Reigns. Like, Roman Reigns, he's a guy with like green contacts who flicks his hair, right? And now he grows a beard and he expects to, like, be over on the fact that he's a badass. No, motherfucker, you can't do that. You can't go from a guy who cares about his appearance and looking pretty and then be like, I'm also a badass. Because in real life, there are very, very few of those people. Very few. And honestly, even those people aren't real badasses, right? So you have obviously good-looking guys that are tough, but they're not badasses, right? Someone like UFC legend, motherfuckers, Sage Northcutt, right? Sage Northcutt, that's his name, right? Sage Northcutt, I think. Right? He's like a young guy. He's like a very good-looking guy, and he's like jacked, and he's an MMA fighter, right? And he got his ass beat a couple times, right? But he has that pretty boy like aesthetic, right? But he doesn't go around pretending that he's like Undertaker. You know what I'm saying? He's like, oh, this is who I am. Like, I look like this, and I'm a good athlete. You know? He doesn't pretend that he's like JBL, right? Like, JBL's a tougher guy than he is. Now, he could probably be the shit of JBL, but he's a tougher guy. You know what I'm saying? He has that aesthetic, right? So I started thinking then, right? What more examples can we use? And I thought to myself, does it really matter? Does it really matter, right? The fact is this: no wrestlers, very few wrestlers, right, in WWE have any personality, right, or have any character. You know, WWE has done a good/horrific job of kind of finding these little formulae, motherfucks, that kind of work or kind of don't, right? Like, depending on who you are, in my opinion, like, none of them work, right? But they have these little formulae, right, where they kind of like take a random superstar and they plug him into this equation, and then what comes out is supposed to be good, right? So one of these formulae, right, is the formula of Paul Heyman, right? Paul Heyman is like the go-to guy. It's like, all right, we want to make someone seem more legitimate than they are, right? Like, this person couldn't, like, pretty much Paul Heyman's role his entire career has been this: this guy can't get over by himself. We need you, Paul. That's pretty much Paul Heyman's entire career, right? He has played a facsimile of that character, right? There's been times when Paul Heyman has managed people like Kurt Angle, right? Or Big Show, who obviously were over. But the problem with that was those were just transition things, right? Those were just transitional things, right? The purpose of that was pretty much to move Heyman away from Lesnar, because they were like, oh, Lesnar doesn't need him anymore, right? That was the whole point of that. And in order to do that, to turn Lesnar face, you had to give him someone to destroy, Paul Heyman, right? But after that, Paul Heyman started associating himself with, like, Heidenreich, you know what I mean? Like classic people that can get over, you know? Roman Reigns, CM Punk. I mean, CM Punk obviously was over, but he wasn't as over as people thought he could be. People really thought that this guy could be a main eventer, like a real one, you know what I'm saying? And it didn't work, right? Paul Heyman didn't make him anything. He didn't add anything to CM Punk, right? Cesaro. I mean, how many people are fake, like Curtis Axel, Ryback, all these people that pretty much the entire point of Paul Heyman was, this person is clearly not good enough, right? They're clearly not good enough. And I like some of them, you know, I like Ryback, right? But it's people that, like, clearly aren't good enough. So what are we going to do? We're going to pair them up with Paul Heyman, right? So basically, to just explain that they're not good enough, but they're with Paul Heyman, therefore there's something here that we don't see, right? That's the entire gimmick of all Paul Heyman guys. Like, the entire point of Curtis Axel was, look at this guy, it's Curtis Axel, right? He has no physical abilities. He's like this chubby guy, right? He's like a chubby guy. He's like nowhere near as good as his father was. He's this chubby guy, but Paul Heyman sees something in him. That was always the story. It was Paul Heyman sees something in him, right? They have used the same exact thing to try to present us Roman Reigns in a different way, and people have ate it up, right? Like, the amount of praise that Roman Reigns has gotten for his heel turn, to me, is astounding. I see the same motherfucker. I see the same guy. He just has a beard now. That's all I see that's different, right? He has a beard. He has a new finisher. Good for him. A kind of a new finisher with a guillotine, you know? And then he has Paul Heyman, right? But his actual mannerisms, his actual work has not changed, right? He has the same attitude. He says the same shit, right? Like this Roman Reigns is no different than the Roman Reigns after he beat Undertaker at WrestleMania, where he was like, this is my yard now. It's the same guy. It's the same fucking guy. Out of this Uso nonsense, right? I'm going to talk about that in another video for sure. The Uso and Roman Reigns problem, you know? But I just made an impromptu video in my head, motherfuckers. So what I'm saying is, Undertaker's point about too pretty, not enough substance is right on the money, right? It's right on the money, not just with wrestling, but with everything else we see around us. It's this entire, like alpha male, sigma male, all this nonsense, right? Not enough substance. You want to overcompensate for your lack of substance with horseshit, right? With horseshit, like green contacts, yellow hair, you know what I'm saying? All this kind of nonsense. Yellow hair, green contacts, I'm an alpha male, oh, I take classes on this, like that kind of shit, right? Find your substance, right? And it's okay. Some of us don't have substance. That's the hard truth. Some of us don't. But here's the good news, motherfuckers. You can develop that shit. And we're gonna get through that at some point. At some point, I'm gonna make some videos about some advice on how to do things that people want to do. In my opinion, that is. You know what I'm saying? I like to think of myself as a pretty cool guy. But yeah, that's the point I'm trying to make, right? You have all these people with no substance. The Rock never had to do anything weird with his hair. The Rock never had to do anything overly flashy. Right? The Rock never even had to look that good, right? He was never this like tip-top shape guy. I mean, he was always in good shape, but like right now he's in way better shape than he was when he was wrestling, right? Like Triple H was always in better shape than The Rock, right? But The Rock made you believe he had substance, motherfucks. He had substance. The Rock was like, Lillian Garcia, you are getting wet with perspiration, looking at The Rock, right? So like The Rock, I mean, I know like now I think The Rock is like much better than he was back then in terms of like his physical appearance and his aesthetic, right? But back then, The Rock was like, oh, I'm this like handsome guy, but it wasn't that. Like I never really thought, oh, look at this guy. He's a very handsome guy. Like for example, people like Edge, right? Triple H, like all like there was a lot of people basically in WWE that were better looking than The Rock in their own way, right? They had a better appeal. I don't mean sexually, motherfucks. I don't mean to the women. I mean generally. There were people that had their own different appeal, like Jeff Hardy, things like that. Like they had their own different appeal, and The Rock never got over on his aesthetic. The Rock never got over on his haircut. Or his eyebrow. He never, like, none of that shit mattered, right? The Rock was a simple guy. It was so easy to make The Rock a generic jobber, right? He's a guy with one stupid ass Brahma bull tattoo, but he took that Brahma bull tattoo and he turned it into something. He turned it into like a marketing ploy. He was like just as sure as The Rock as the Brahma bull tattooed on his bicep. You know what I'm saying? The Rock oozed charisma, and more important than charisma, he oozed substance and personality. He had a personality. You look forward to seeing him because you know that you're gonna get something out of this. What the thing might be might vary from person to person, but you are gonna get something out of The Rock. You're not gonna watch him because he has green contact lenses. You're not gonna watch him because he flicks his hair. You're not gonna watch him for this nonsense, things that nobody wants to watch. You know what I'm saying? Nobody wants to see Drew McIntyre on his knees. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you, not you guys of course, but a lot of people, a lot of smarks want to see him on his knees, if you know what I'm saying. But people like me don't want to see him on his knees, right? So that's that pretty versus substance, right? You see, again, I have to bring it up. You see JBL and Farouk walk to the ring, you can tell that these are men of substance. These are not guys, right, that have to get their eyebrow pierced, right? Like Farouk has never been a guy who was walked into a room and thought to himself, I would really stand out here if I had green contacts. No, he stood out there because he was probably the strongest, toughest guy in the room. Roman Reigns has never been the toughest, strongest guy in the room, so he has to grow a beard and get green contacts and all this shit. It's embarrassing. It's like when Cucky Rhodes got that mustache. Remember the Cucky Rhodes mustache? Right? It's exactly like that. It's like, oh, I have nothing to present to you, so I have to grow a mustache and make that my gimmick. You know what I mean? I know it wasn't really a gimmick, motherfuckers, but you know what I'm saying, right? He's just a guy who was like, oh, I have nothing. Like, nobody cares about me because I'm not inherently interesting. So I'm going to have to grow a mustache. Same shit with a lot of people. A lot of people have understood this. Some of the smart ones understood this and left WWE, reinvented themselves elsewhere, and then came back, right? Some people understood, they're like, oh shit, right now I got nothing to offer. This is a one-way ticket to being a jobber, then being released and never hired again. You know what I mean? A lot of these people got it, or some of them got lucky and that's just what happened. But you know what I'm saying? This substance versus pretty argument that Undertaker inadvertently made, I don't think he meant for it to be analyzed like I'm analyzing it, or, I think it was the comment in passing. But it's true. It's true. You have all these wrestlers that are all about their appearance, right? They're all about their appearance, and then they wonder why they can't get over. Because to them, it's like, well, I did everything. I bleached my hair. So why am I not over? Why am I not getting pushed, right? It's the same shit. Like, I watched AEW, Kenta comes out, literally the dumbest hair coloring I've ever seen in my life. It looks like cotton candy. It looks like shit. He comes out there, it's a guy with pink blue hair, right? I honestly think that I could beat up Kenta with one arm. I really believe this. I'm not even joking. Oh, he kicks really hard. I think with my power hand, I could knock him out. I don't think he'd have any chance, to be honest, right? Now, when he had black hair, I'd be like, okay, he can probably beat my ass. Let's be real. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's be real. Like, I mean, he's like an athletic guy for sure. You know what I'm saying? And he's like tough. He can take pain, right? But now with a pink blue hair, I have zero fear of someone like Kenta. I'm like, all right, this man is insecure. This man is an inferior human being in terms of his psychology. He is a weak man, right? These are the conclusions that I come up with when I see a cotton candy haired retard coming out there barely lifting Dean Ambrose. You know what I mean? Like, come on, man. Come on. That's the problem with this. Not enough substance. Kenta understands. He gets it finally. He understands that he brings nothing of value. The only two things of value that he has, right, are the fact that he wrestled in WWE, and by that I mean NXT and 205 Live. I don't think this cocksucker ever wrestled on Raw, right? So he wrestled in quote-unquote WWE, right? And the fact that he has the go to sleep, which CM Punk made famous. That's all he brings to the table. And you can see that. You can see that, right? You can see that. On his shirt it says Go to Sleep Club. It's the only thing that people might actually recognize about this guy. And then he has cotton candy hair, right? Because he understands that what he brings to the table isn't enough. Isn't enough, motherfucks. He has no substance and he knows it. So that's what Undertaker was saying. You know, instead of recruiting heavily from these like pseudo athletes, right? Like going to the NFL Combine, finding the 5 guys that are definitely going to get cut, the guys that weren't good enough, basically, and then signing them to developmental deals, and they all turn into like fucking, what's that guy? The guy who partnered with Mojo Rawley, I forget his name. I actually like them, but the guy with the long hair, I forget his name. Riddick Moss, there you go. Riddick Moss, they all turn into like Riddick Moss. You know, they'll never become anything because like you don't even give them a chance, right? Instead of doing that, hire people of substance. Hire people of substance. And back in the day, it wasn't just big, strong guys with substance. There were a lot of people with substance, right, that are memorable, that weren't even wrestlers. You know what I'm saying? Managers, things like that, right? People of substance. Like Jerry the King Lawler and JR are men of substance, right? You can tell that there's something about them, that you want to know more about them, right? You see what I'm getting at? Cucks. Theodore Long, another one, right? There's plenty of people that have substance that weren't big guys. You don't have to be a big, strong guy to do that, right? But these people come with nothing. They offer nothing. They're like a bunch of Cody Rhodeses. They don't have any significant athletic ability. Like, it's not like Cody Rhodes can do anything that Sin Cara can't do, or Unico can't do, or Grand Metalik can't do, or like anyone on 205 Live can't do, right? Or Xavier Woods can't do, or Sami Zayn can't do. He doesn't offer anything special, right? Like, he's not like the Big Show where he's the only one that can like choke slam 2 people, like seriously, right? He offers nothing special, nothing particular and unique about him, right? So he's like, oh shit, I understand now. I offer nothing in the in-ring element of it that someone else can't offer. So what do I do? Oh, charisma. I have basically 0 of that. So what else can I offer, right? Oh, I know. I'll change my appearance every once in a while, and that'll make people like me. Right? And that's why this cocksucker is out there bleaching his hair, growing a mustache, getting a neck tattoo, all things of indicators of people with no substance. All pretty, no substance, right? This is literally that guy in high school. You all know one of these guys. That guy in high school who never got laid, never got any attention, and then one day came to high school with his ear pierced, right? Or something else, or he like bleached his hair, and he was like, I'm a new me now. It's literally that guy. That's the guy that people who like Cody Rhodes like. They like that guy, but for some reason when Cody Rhodes does it, it's not as cringy and embarrassing as it was in high school. So, once again, I have to say I agree with the Undertaker player wholeheartedly, and, you know, I think it speaks for itself, basically, motherfucks. Now, stay tuned, and by stay tuned, I mean tomorrow, motherfucks. Tomorrow, we're going to have a video about, what's it called, motherfucks? About, it's going to be about the Usos and Roman Reigns, but it's going to be more about the Samoan dynasty. All right, motherfucks, peace out.